What's up, guys? My name is Michael, and today I want to talk to you about the differences between the X-Pro2 and the X-T2. I own both cameras, and to be honest, for me the decision was not that easy. The first one was the X-Pro2. I got it first, and after a while I got the X-T2. And it seems that the X-T2 has become my favorite camera pretty quickly. The question is, why did the X-T2 become my favorite camera? And I think the most important thing before we talk about that is that you know that the X-Pro2 is not a bad camera. It depends, I think, mostly on your shooting style. So let's talk about what these cameras have in common at first, and then about the differences and about why my favorite is the X-T2. So what they both have in common is, of course, the sensor, and I think a lot of the dials and the general feel of the cameras are pretty similar. So same sensor, same image quality, I think also same focus speed, similar settings, the quick menu looks just exactly the same, so there are not huge differences if you look at them in the first place. Let's talk about some differences that there are if you have a closer look. So the X-Pro2 cannot do 4K video. So for most of you this is not going to be an issue, but it's worth talking about. The X-Pro2 has no tilt screen like the X-T2 has. There's no grip available for the X-Pro2. So you can use the Pro camera just with one battery inside, and you can use the X-T2 with 3 batteries, which is a big difference. But the X-Pro2 has a hybrid viewfinder, so you can enjoy a real image if you look through the optical viewfinder. This is not possible with the X-T2. That being said, I don't use the optical viewfinder at all. I seem to prefer the electronic image because it shows me what I'm gonna get. And the digital viewfinder on both cameras is so fast and so clear that you won't miss the optical viewfinder if you come from a DSLR. So these are the obvious differences. If you take both cameras in your hands, you will notice that the X-T2 feels a little bigger. And this has pros and cons. It's not a big camera, but it's slightly bigger. So if you like to do street photography, for example, you want a small camera. And the viewfinder on the X-Pro2 is right in the middle of the body, and on the X-Pro2 the viewfinder is on the left side. So if you take the X-Pro2 to your face, you will still see what's going on, and if you have the X-T2 in front of your face, it's like with the DSLR, your face is almost completely hidden behind the camera. So if you like to do street photography or mostly portrait, this will be a plus on the X-Pro2 for sure. If you plan to shoot completely on the Fuji X system and you're only going to buy one camera, I really recommend you get the X-T2. The X-T2 has a higher frame rate, it shoots 4K, and the most important thing is that it has dedicated dials for the ISO, and the exposure compensation dial is much more accessible because it's bigger. That's what I really like when shooting and adjusting settings, and the X-Pro2 is kind of difficult to adjust on the ISO dial. It's not a big deal, you can use it, but if you find yourself shooting a lot in manual mode and you want to adjust the ISO pretty often, you will start to hate the ISO and shutter speed combined dial on the X-Pro2. which is no big deal if you shoot landscape or studio stuff where your setting is going to stay the same for a very long time. So not to make things worse as they are, but keep that in mind. If you plan to have a DSLR and just buy a Fuji camera to add to your existing kit, then maybe the X-Pro2 is more of what you're looking for, because it's a really beautiful camera. I really love shooting it, but more like if I'm not on a job and if I have the time, then that's more of the shooting style that I enjoy. If I'm on a job and I need to get things done pretty quickly, adjust settings more often, then I really enjoy using the X-T2. Of course I take the X-Pro2 with me as well, but I wish I had two X-T2s for that. One more important and pretty big difference between both cameras is the viewfinder. I told you that the X-Pro2 has the hybrid viewfinder, which makes it possible to see a real image, and you can, on the other hand, on the X-T2 only use the electronic viewfinder. The electronic viewfinder on the X-T2 feels so much better. The image appears bigger, and you can see the image much better because the eyepiece is much more comfortable. So if you shoot all day long on the X-Pro2 and you use the viewfinder, no matter if it's the electronic or the optical viewfinder, it's gonna be pretty exhausting because the viewfinder is so small, and yeah, it's really hard to look through it all day long. At least that's for me. But be warned, if you use your camera a lot during the day, make sure you're checking the viewfinder of the X-Pro2 before you buy it. So with that being said, let's put it all together. The X-T2 is, technically speaking, the better camera. It has a higher frame rate, it has 4K, and alone these two options already make a big difference. But you might love the X-Pro2 because it's smaller and it's more of a viewfinder camera style, which is great for travel, which is great for portrait, which is great especially for street photography. So yeah, it's a difficult decision. Maybe you do it just the way that I did. You get both of them and you will be happy with both cameras. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helps you on your decision on which camera you should buy. By the way, this is filmed on the X-T2. Yeah, leave a comment about what you think about both cameras. Tell me which one you got and why. Leave a thumbs up, hit subscribe. See you next time. Goodbye.